be will be. Hello and welcome to the Toucan podcast, episode 48.
I mean, if that's right, that's fantastic.
I think I put it in one of our podcast updates the other day. So it always sounds better when you know the episode number, you know?
Right.
Yeah, welcome to Toucan podcast 48. I'm James.
I'm Harry.
And we are the two members of Toucan Echo. Two piece forever, baby.
No bassists, nothing.
Get out! No. Today we're going to be talking about a range of topics, but we're going to kick off with the Beatles Get Back documentary because, well, this has not just been the biggest part of my week, it's been the biggest part of my life. So
Biggest part of your life, James? Wow.
No, not the biggest part of my life, but not far off. I do love the Beatles.
Oh, isn't that so exciting? So,
Abbey Road was the best day of my life.
Beatles related.
Yeah.
Wow. Anyway, so we'll get to that in a second, but let's set the scene. For those who aren't on the video, we are still in this house in France. We're sat in front of the fire because there's no central heating. But it's cozy.
The fire's amazing.
The fire is
So warm right
toasty.
I mean, we are inches away from it, but it's the level of toastiness I've been looking for.
Yeah. So we're huddled around this fire. We've got the town church ringing for 7 p.m. which is great. It's character, you know.
Oh man.
So welcome. But let's go, James. So Beatles Get
Yes.
Back documentary.
So yes. So we're still in France. But fortunately, we can access Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of time on our hands, so we tuned in for the 3 full episodes. Okay, context. If you don't know already, I'm like a crazy Beatles fan, like a real nut. I'm not the one who wrote the books of like what they did every single day in 1964, but I do own the books, and I think they're a fascinating read. So for me, there's like, and also, you know, we obviously make our own music and write songs and that kind of thing. So to see your favourite band like on film doing that process of like something that's really kind of behind closed doors from before that, I just found it absolutely fascinating. Like, you know, there's no footage of Sgt. Pepper Sessions or Revolver. There's the odd photo, like the odd story. To actually see, I think it's like pretty ahead of its time to do like a full behind the scenes. Yeah. This is how our process works kind of thing. Like it could be a YouTube series, you know. But yeah, I thought it was fascinating. Like that. I try and sort of try and talk about it in ways that are not just like covered a million times over everywhere else. But like that whole period of the Beatles is meant to be them hating each other, breaking up, like all disaster, because that's how the original film was edited. So they agreed to do this, like they wanted to do a more live album and they wanted to kind of film the process, and like John Lennon was well up for that because he like wanted to dispel the myth of the Beatles and stuff a little bit and show sort of all the warts and all kind of thing. Yeah. So that was sort of what it was meant to be, but the original film, for whatever reason, was edited to like kind of all the negative bits. Maybe it was just to make it look dramatic or something. Wow. I've not actually watched the film. Maybe I watched bits of it, but I've not watched the whole film. It's like 2 hours or something.
That'll be an interesting watch now that we've seen the footage edited in a different way.
But I think they do more focus on the sort of argument bits, which, you know, this takes a lot more of that footage and puts it out there, because this is like 8 hours long versus 2 hours. So you actually see the majority of the time. To be honest, the majority of the time, they're really unproductive. They are both like hyper speed and really unproductive. But yeah, my summary of it was just like, I knew a bit about the history. I love the Beatles. I love watching the creative process. And there's lots of that in this 8 hours doc. And that's absolutely fascinating. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Summary, opening.
Yeah, to put it into context, this was released over 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And each episode was almost 3 hours long. So it totaled to 8 hours of content. Oh, it was, so I mean, unless you're an absolute Beatles fanatic, you probably just find it absolutely mind-numbing and kind of insane. Because the Beatles, in their when they're trying to make songs, that James said earlier, they're not productive. They are, it's chaos. They are just playing random songs. They get distracted all the time. But I thought that was really interesting because that is very similar to how I've experienced making songs in a group before, or like practicing. You just get distracted and you spend like a half an hour or so just playing random songs. So I related to that.
Yeah, my brain definitely gravitates towards that at random times. Like, let's play songs from our old band from 4 years ago. It's like, okay, and we just sort of do. But I mean, the interesting thing is they started writing and finished the album in the matter of like 3 weeks.
Mental.
Which like is by these standards like crazy, and you go, oh my god, in those 3 weeks they must have been busting a gut kind of thing. And they did like, not quite 9 to 5, but they did do all day sessions just there.
These were the sessions that became Let It Be, which was released quite a lot later. But yeah, it's mental. They started on the 6th of January or something, and then they finished on the last day of January or something. It was like the 30th,
something like that, yeah.
31st.
It's like, but this is the point that it's like juxtaposing that versus what the actual footage is. So you imagine, they made an album in 3 weeks. They must have been really pushing hard, but they were completely unfocused half the time. They were just messing around. So like. And they did do songs like over and over and over again. So they did work hard on the songs, and the songs did shape over the 3 weeks. It's not like they all came together in a day. Like they would do a song, go round just like doing random crap for ages, and then come back to the song, and it would be like a tiny bit better, and they'd come up with more ideas and stuff. So like it wasn't systematic, it wasn't like productive, and wasn't like fast, but it also in the macro like was fast because it was all done in 3 weeks. I don't know. So that I've not got my head around that bit yet. that they I didn't think they would mess around as much as we did in bands, but they messed around more.
Yeah, they messed around so much. It was I found it really insightful because there's always this mysticism around how the Beatles came up with those songs, but in the documentary you see just like there's a few great bits where Paul comes up with Get Back, Paul McCartney.
Sir Paul.
Sir Paul McCartney. And he's just messing around on the guitar before John Lennon gets in. It's like Paul sat here, and then in front of him are just George and Ringo just messing around. And Paul just like starts doing this thing on the guitar, and then over the course of maybe 90 seconds, Get Back just appears.
Yeah,
that's just mental. And then there's another segment where it's a chaotic segment, and Paul's on the piano. And John Lennon is talking to someone about the live show they're going to put on. He's going on about like plastics and all this random shit.
Yeah.
And then George and Ringo are all just like discussing like locations for the show because just for context, at the end of the documentary they wanted to form a live show, which is what became their rooftop show in the end. But they were discussing locations and sets for that performance, and it's chaos. And then amidst all this stuff, like Paul McCartney's just on the piano, and he just comes out with Let It Be. It's just crazy.
Like, I read on one of the reviews, it seems like John Lennon goes away and writes in the evening, and it seems like Paul McCartney sits there in front of everyone and makes stuff up, which is quite interesting processes. I think George is a bit more like John Lennon, where he like comes in with stuff like a bit tentatively. It was a roller coaster, but like in terms of insights like the creative process, there's not much I could take where it's go like that's how I do it, apart from just the like sheer work ethic and speed. Because the other thing that amazed me, and I know this album is where they did things more live and less overdubbed, so like what you're watching would be different, but they would do like one half-hearted take, and then, well, not half-hearted, but they do one with like you know the song. Like for me, I know the song so well. I've listened to the Let It Be record so many times that I know what songs are on there. So I can hear a take of like, I've got a feeling, and know that it's not the one on the record. But then the next take they did after that was the one on the record, and it's exactly as I remember it. Yeah. So I think there's an element of whatever got on the record, because it was a Beatles record, whatever, became like iconic in your mind. So when you hear them play that versus like just another take of the song, like they sound completely different to you. Like one sounds like a finished record, and the other sounds like them messing around, if you get what I mean. But also just that ability to like sing live, play live, the parts they would make up for a song that like someone just bought in, like All Things Must Pass. Like Paul McCartney's basically playing the bass that sounds like went on the George Harrison solo album, The Final Thing, just from hearing it like 5 seconds ago. Like their instinctive way of like playing together in parts was just, I'm not sure what you can learn from that apart from just keep playing and playing and playing, because like that was really, really incredible.
Yeah. That's it. You just got to keep playing, and that's they just had so much experience under their belt. They could churn out songs. That was crazy. And it was also really interesting to see the dynamic around George leaving temporarily. So
I'm leaving the group now.
not only did they record an album, write and record most of an album in 3 weeks, George Harrison left
for about a week.
Yeah, about a week in that time. He just like left us like, oh, I'm leaving the band now. I'll see you in the club, boys. And then he just went up to Liverpool for a couple of days. Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But that was really interesting seeing the dynamic there, because I think a lot of people, or the way that I've interpreted it was that John and Paul sort of they kind of neglected it, and they just didn't really listen to him, and they didn't they didn't put his songs on the album and things like that, so George didn't have a creative outlet. But it's actually a much more open discussion than I thought it was. So it's interesting to see those dynamics. And Paul actually has discussions with George like, oh, I want to include your songs, but then I don't know how to because I can't. It's a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I agree. That was like some of the most interesting bits. Like,
yeah,
there's sort of the two sides. There's like or maybe three. There's like the historical context of it. Just watching the '60s, which I read in Bob Lefsett's review. It's just like everything looks so modern apart from the cars. And it's like I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think it's because the picture's so nice.
Yeah.
Like it's all restored, so it just looks like modern footage. So there's that side, just like everything 60s, old phones, old recording equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then there's like the bit we talked about, the creative process, where they're sat messing around, doing all sorts of random shit that we do in the practice room, except they had 3 weeks.
Yeah, and they come up with hits.
Yeah. And then the third bit, is the like dynamic between the group that we think we know, and there's like, particularly with George Harrison leaving everything, we all think we know the story and we know the reasons. But as you said, like the most shocking bit is they knew the reasons as well, and they talked about them openly.
Yeah.
Like the openness of the conversations that they had around that, like their friendships were like so deep that we can't quite get into like what it was like to be in that group. The things they've been through together and like the closeness, even though that made them fall out, or like perhaps maybe just be more open about like disagreements and not being afraid to stomp off because like your understanding with that person is on like another level. But like openly took like, particularly Paul and John openly talking about like, well, you used to be the boss and I'm sort of the boss now and I don't want to be the boss, but that's sort of what's happening. And like, I want my songs to be a certain way and I want to like let you have input, but also if I don't think it should go that way, should I not say anything, and that kind of thing. And like that's so applicable to like other bands that have been in. I mean, I'd say like this band's a bit different because Two Piece is not like a full band dynamic. Two Piece is sort of both more intense and more chill for different reasons. Yeah. But like in a 4-piece dynamic, we have multiple songwriters. Like it definitely reflected it, and I think I've definitely not been in as open conversations as like the Beatles did about that problem, and ultimately they didn't solve it. They were just at that point where that they had to go off and do their own thing. And I think history proved that to sort of be the right thing. But
it's wild.
Yeah.
And that's before we even got onto the fashion in the documentary, because that's the main thing.
Yeah, that was your main takeaway, was Glyn Johns'
I see,
jacket.
I see it as a documentary on Glyn Johns' forays into late 60s fashion. And it just so happened that the Beatles were there recording an album at the same time.
Yeah.
Glyn Johns is he was the audio engineer across most of that project. So he basically set up all the mics and the sound and recorded them. But his jackets and his clothes and his shirts and his glasses, they were just on point all the time. Because for those who've seen maybe the documentary, but even the rooftop concert that was at the end of the documentary, because that footage has been available for quite a long time. You see things like George Harrison's coat, which is epic, and even John Lennon's coat in that
big fur coat.
Yeah, love that sort of shit. But their inspiration was clearly Glyn Johns, because throughout, Glyn Johns is coming in with coat after coat after coat. And it was just
knock it day after day, knocking it out the park, coat-wise.
But the other thing that's interesting is, I think you mentioned this, but coming back to how modern everything is, you look at John Lennon, he's wearing just like casual trainers with jeans, and George Harrison's got Converse on and stuff like that. And all the sort of stuffy business people around them are still like in suits and stuff. So it's quite interesting, and I think that added to the modern feel. Like they were wearing sort of pretty modern clothes
Yeah.
at the time.
I mean, Paul McCartney.
Yeah, Paul McCartney.
I wasn't a fan of Paul McCartney's dress sense. A lot of waistcoats, a lot of tank tops.
Yeah.
Not really my vibe. George Harrison was just completely outrageous, which I loved. It's like, what was the like sort of light pink pinstripe suit with like purple dress shirt?
Oh god, that was good.
And he asked someone to go and get him a bow tie at some point that he wore around his neck, like not around his collar. It's like, can you go get me one of those lace bow ties? Like, amazing. There's loads of golden stuff in there in dress sense. Yeah, Glyn John's like, I don't know if you know, but he went off to do. He's actually a really famous producer in his own right. Like, I know he's known for the Glyn Johns method of like miking drums.
Yeah.
But he did like a few Who albums, a few Rolling Stones albums.
Wow.
I can't remember. Led Zeppelin, I think he did. Like, he did proper.
Wow.
He had his career like hadn't really taken off as much as it did later in the 70s and 80s and stuff. Yeah.
That's mental.
So that doc was great. I enjoyed all 8 hours of it.
Yeah, go watch it. It's actually really good. If you're a Beatles fan. If you're not, you might not understand it.
Yeah, you might have to watch it on like 2 times speed. Just get the rush of images and. But also the rooftop concert at the end was really cool because it had extra footage of like the police trying to like shut it down and stuff. So it wasn't just the concert. You had all these different things happening, and the Beatles just up there playing. And they played the same songs a few times, which I didn't know. Yeah. No, it was great. One of the best docs ever. Loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a big part of our week. What else in Toucan Echo Land? We are back jamming, so we've been working quite hard on behind the scenes stuff for our latest album, Headless Restless. You've been editing the music video, been uploading and stuff. We've been editing behind the scenes content, but we've also started jamming again and kind of making whatever we're making next.
Oh yeah, we started writing songs for album 3. Which is fun.
Yeah, which is fun. It's fun to go for like literally from the end of one process the week before to like starting, creating stuff again.
Yeah.
I love just starting the process again because by the time you're at the end of the album, you're ready to just go back to a bit of chaos. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that's been fun. I mean, we haven't finished album 2 yet, but we also wanted to take advantage of being isolated from everything to write some songs. So that's quite productive, especially when you're in a different setting. You tend to come out with different stuff. So that's why we've started album 3, having not finished album 2.
I'm getting a lot of like acoustic-y tracks right now. I'm listening to a lot of Joni Mitchell and Neil Young and that sort of thing, as you know. Although not according to my Spotify top.
Oh yeah, what's yours?
Okay. We'll get onto that in a sec. But right now, I'm writing a lot of acoustic songs. I think we may have like an acoustic EP or something in between.
Oh, that's naughty.
Potentially. Because there's a few songs that are fitting that mould and they're nothing like the jam songs that we've got. That's nutty!
Wow, stay tuned, folks, for the potential Toucan Echo acoustic EP coming out sometime
early musings.
Wow, even I didn't know about that, so
really
hot off the press.
I had the idea today, thought I'd throw it in. That we could be doing a little acoustic release post. Because, it might be another year till the next album at our current rate of working. But yeah, anyway, my Spotify of the year is really fucked up because I use it to reference mixes.
Oh yeah.
So I use it half the time for just casual listening. Although we also listen to a lot of vinyl and stuff. But also I use it for when I'm mixing Toucan Echo tracks. I listen to either old Toucan Echo tracks or like other tracks I like the sound of, and to try and like make sure I've not done anything crazy with the mixing. But it means that my top top ones, I'm in the top 0.5% of people that listen to Toucan Echo.
Are you?
Yeah.
You're probably the top person, James.
I imagine so, unless someone's beaten me, which I'm very, very impressed.
Well, you've probably got, I don't know, how many listeners? 100? And if James is in the top 0.5%, that makes you the top listener, James.
I wouldn't be surprised, because I listen to the songs quite a lot. Mostly for mixing purposes. Like, Blind When I See the Sun's one of my top ones, but I listened to it for ages, because I wasn't sure if I was happy with the mix. I was just like, is that too fuzzy? Is that not?
Even though it's already on Spotify, you're still, you need to let it go. You need to let it go, James.
It's because it would sound a little bit fuzzy. I was like, oh, was that because of the Spotify upload? So I was listening back and forth. So might be hot. It is hot.
Yeah.
But a cool thing that you get this year on Spotify, year wraps or whatever they call it, is your audio aura.
Oh yeah.
So your top moods.
All right.
My top music moods. This would work better if we already had yours, but my top music moods are bold and energy.
Oh, mine was. I definitely got bold. I might have got energy as well though. I can't remember which one I got. I definitely got bold though.
Whereas my friend David's were calm and wistful.
Calm and wistful.
I don't even know what wistful means. Wistful. Isn't that sort of... I don't know, what sort of dreaming of something? Yeah, having or showing a feeling of vague or regretful longing. Specific.
Wow.
A wistful smile.
Interesting. Well, that's
I
pretty
got bold
wild.
and energy, which is obviously very mean.
I think I got bold. I might have got energy as well. So we are matching.
It's because you're in the top 0.7% of Toucan Echo listeners or whatever.
I hope I'm not number 2. I hope there's someone in between me and James. I really hope there is. If Toucan Echo pops up on your Spotify Wrapped, and if you're in the top listeners, please let us know.
There's got to be someone. Some people have got to love it.
Yeah.
Square one's taken off. But yeah.
All of mine were. I have a similar issue in that my Spotify is skewed because I listen to a lot of tracks to drum with, and most of those tracks are tracks featuring Steve Jordan on the drums, i.e.
Is he your top?
Continuum by John Mayer.
Yeah.
Most of that album. So I've got like their cover of Bold as Love in repair.
Yeah, you're just a super fan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great track. I was in the
think
top
I had.
1% of John Mayer listeners.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. That is high.
Yeah.
I was not in the... Yeah, I mustn't have been as exciting for other artists. I think I had New Light as my top track, 'cause that's one of my favourite reference tracks.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I had some same stuff from like last year that I didn't think I listened to as much this year, but had some like Spanish reggaeton. Had Grateful Dead. I'm not sure the Beatles were in my top 5 this year.
Really?
Paul Simon or something. Green Day. It was really random, but I think it was from the reference tracks.
Yeah.
Because I've listened to so much, like Neil Young and Joni, and
Yeah.
not as much Beatles on Spotify, but a bit more on vinyl this year. But hey, anyway, that's my top spot. That's what Toucan Echo have been listening to. You heard it here.
Segment's not over yet, James.
Oh.
My one of the big things for me is for the first time ever, indie rock wasn't my top listened artist or my top listened genre.
Yeah, mine was your top list. Mine was like 5th.
Really, I had alternative hip hop as my top, which is interesting because that's not an active choice trying to be cool. That's just
I look at you, I see alternative hip hop.
But
give that vibe.
But it's been staunchly indie rock for the past since Wrapped came out, and I'm glad that that's finally gone.
You've eradicated that.
Yeah, eradicated my past.
I think you've been trying to get rid of it. I think you've been actively listening to as much else as possible, whether you like it or not.
I had alternative hip hop, indie rock music as number 2, and then ambient music as number 3.
Yeah.
Which is
I'm gonna try and get classical to my number 1 next year.
classical.
Educate myself.
Yeah.
But no, so that was another exciting musical event of the day. But yeah, so we are back to England in a few days, working on the album and the behind the scenes stuff a bit more, starting jamming. We're going to be moving up to Leeds, sorting out our new practice space. It is all going to be happening. But
Same old stuff really. Not much has changed.